Sarah Weber had everything a 25-year-old woman could dream of. At least, that's what everyone in her tight-knit Vancouver neighborhood believed. Her Instagram feed told the story of a fairy tale romance, romantic dinners overlooking the harbor, weekend getaways to Whistler, lazy Sunday mornings with homemade pancakes and fresh flowers on the table. The comment section overflowed with heart emojis and envious remarks. "Couple goals," her friends would write. "When will I find someone like Thomas Fisher, 32 years old, successful financial consultant at one of Vancouver's premier investment firms, with the kind of steady, dependable presence that made parents approve and friends jealous. He had dark hair that was always perfectly styled, warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and the sort of quiet confidence that came from never having to prove himself. He wore tailored suits during the week and expensive casual wear on weekends, the uniform of young urban professionals who'd made it. They'd met 3 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding. Sarah had been a bridesmaid, Thomas a groomsman. It was one of those meetings that felt destined, the kind of story Sarah loved to recount at dinner parties. "I caught the bouquet," she would say, her eyes lighting up at the memory, "and when I turned around, there he was, smiling at me like he already knew." 6 months of dating, a romantic proposal on Granville Island with the sunset painting the sky pink and orange, and a beautiful wedding at a heritage venue in Victoria. Everything had moved with the smooth inevitability of a well-choreographed dance. Their apartment in Kitsilano was exactly what you'd expect from a successful young couple. Exposed brick walls, hardwood floors, a kitchen with marble countertops where Thomas would cook elaborate meals on Friday nights. Sarah had quit her job as a junior marketing coordinator when they got married. Thomas insisted they didn't need the money, and she'd always dreamed of starting her own freelance graphic design business anyway. "I want to take care of you," he'd said, his voice soft and sincere. "Let me do that. You focus on building your dream." It was perfect. Too perfect. Though Sarah would never have admitted that to anyone, barely even to herself. There were moments, brief, fleeting moments she would immediately dismiss, when something felt slightly off. The way Thomas always insisted on carrying his wallet in his inside jacket pocket, never leaving it on the counter or nightstand like most men did. How he'd angle his phone away from her when checking messages, not obviously or rudely, just a subtle shift in position. The locked desk drawer in his home office, which he said contained boring financial documents that would put you to sleep. "You're being paranoid," Sarah would tell herself during those rare moments of doubt. "This is what a healthy relationship looks like. He's just a private person. That's okay." Sarah's best friend, Jennifer Miller, had expressed concerns about the relationship early on, before the wedding. "Don't you think it's weird that you've never met any of his family?" Jennifer had asked over coffee one afternoon. "I mean, his parents supposedly live in Toronto, but he never visits them. They didn't even come to your wedding." Sarah had the answers ready, the ones Thomas had given her. "His family is complicated," she'd explained. "His parents had a messy divorce when he was young. They don't really do family gatherings, and honestly, isn't it kind of nice? No in-law drama to deal with." Jennifer had raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. What could she say? Thomas treated Sarah like a princess. He remembered every anniversary, surprised her with thoughtful gifts, supported her dreams. He was attentive, successful, stable. In a world where so many women settled for less, Sarah had found more. The truth was, Sarah had fallen completely, totally in love. Thomas had become her entire world. She drifted away from some of her friendships, not dramatically, just gradually, the way it happens when you're building a life with someone. Her parents, who lived in Calgary, approved wholeheartedly of Thomas. "He's a good man," her father had said after their first meeting. "You can tell by the way he looks at you." Her mother loved how Thomas would call them every Sunday evening to chat, asking about their week, sharing stories about his work. September 23rd, 2023, started like any other Tuesday morning. Sarah woke up at 7:30 to find Thomas already showered and dressed for work, standing in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie. He wore a charcoal grey suit with a light blue shirt. The colour brought out his eyes. "Morning, beautiful," he said, turning to kiss her forehead. "I made coffee. It's in your favourite mug." "You're the best," Sarah mumbled, still half asleep. She watched him finish getting ready with the comfortable familiarity of 2 years of marriage. He moved through their bedroom with practiced efficiency, wallet from the dresser into his inside jacket pocket, phone charged and ready, laptop bag by the door. "I've got that client meeting downtown," Thomas said, checking his watch. "Might run late. Don't wait up for dinner if I'm not home by 7. "Okay," Sarah replied. "I've got a client call this afternoon anyway, that new startup that wants a brand identity package." "That's my girl," Thomas smiled, pride evident in his voice. "Building your empire." He kissed her goodbye. A proper kiss this time, his hand cupping her cheek in that way that still made her stomach flip after all this time. Then he was gone, the sound of the apartment door closing behind him, his footsteps fading down the hallway. Sarah went through her usual morning routine, shower, coffee, checking emails. Her freelance business was slowly gaining traction. She had 3 active clients and several promising leads. It wasn't enough to fully support herself yet, but it felt good to be building something of her own. Thomas had been incredibly supportive, never making her feel bad about the fact that she wasn't contributing financially to their household. Around 10 o'clock, Sarah's phone rang. It was Thomas. "Hey babe, weird question," he said, and she could hear street noise in the background. "Did I leave my AirPods there? I can't find them anywhere." "Let me check," Sarah said, already walking toward the bedroom. She looked on his nightstand, the dresser, checked the bathroom counter. "Not seeing them. Where did you last have them?" "I thought I put them in my jacket pocket last night, but—" Thomas trailed off. "Never mind. They're probably in my gym bag at the office. I'll look later. Love you?" "Love you too." Sarah hung up and was about to return to her laptop when something caught her eye. Thomas's brown leather wallet was sitting on the dresser, partially hidden behind a photo frame. He'd forgotten it. Thomas never forgot his wallet. He was meticulous about these things, almost obsessively organized. She picked it up, feeling its familiar weight in her hands. She'd return it to him, of course. His office was only a 20-minute drive. He'd need it for lunch, for his afternoon meetings. It would be a nice excuse to see him, maybe grab a quick coffee together. But as she held the wallet, Sarah felt something she couldn't quite explain. A whisper of intuition, a flutter of unease in her stomach. Jennifer's old concerns echoed in her mind. "Don't you think it's weird?" Sarah looked at the closed wallet in her hands. She'd never gone through Thomas's personal things. It had never even occurred to her. They had trust, respect, privacy. She wasn't the kind of wife who snooped through her husband's phone or wallet, but her hands were already moving, almost of their own accord, flipping open the leather bifold. The main compartment held what you'd expect: credit cards, his driver's license, a few business cards, some cash. Nothing unusual, nothing concerning. Sarah felt a wave of relief mixed with shame. What was she doing? This was Thomas, her husband, her partner, the man who'd never given her any real reason to doubt him. She was about to close the wallet when she noticed something. Behind the clear plastic slot that held his driver's license, there was another compartment, a small pocket barely visible, and in that pocket there was a photograph. It wasn't unusual for people to keep photos in their wallets. Sarah's own wallet had a picture of her and Thomas from their wedding day. But something about this hidden compartment made her pause. Thomas had never mentioned keeping a photo in his wallet. She'd never seen it before. With trembling fingers, Sarah pulled out the photograph. Time seemed to stop. The photo showed Thomas, unmistakably Thomas, maybe a year or two younger, standing with his arm around a woman Sarah had never seen before. The woman was beautiful, long dark hair, olive skin, a warm smile. She wore a simple white dress, and Thomas was in khakis and a blue button-down shirt. They were standing in front of what looked like a beach, palm trees visible in the background, and they weren't just standing together. They looked intimate, comfortable, in love. But that wasn't what made Sarah's heart stop. The woman was holding a baby. A baby who couldn't have been more than a few months old, wrapped in a blue blanket, sleeping peacefully in the woman's arms. And Thomas was looking down at that baby with an expression Sarah had seen before, in their wedding photos, in moments when he thought no one was watching. It was love, pure, undiluted, paternal love. Sarah's hands began to shake. She turned the photo over, and on the back, written in handwriting she didn't recognize, were 4 words that would change everything. Nuestra familia, siempre juntos. Our family, always together. The photo slipped from Sarah's fingers, falling onto the hardwood floor. She stood frozen, her mind trying to process what she'd just seen, trying to find an innocent explanation, trying to make it make sense. But deep down, in a place beyond rational thought, Sarah Weber already knew. The perfect life she'd been living, the fairy tale marriage she'd believed in with her whole heart, was built on a foundation of lies. And everything was about to come crashing down. Sarah didn't know how long she stood there, staring at the photograph on the floor. Minutes, hours? Time had lost all meaning. Her mind kept trying to construct innocent explanations, desperately grasping at anything that would make this okay. Maybe it was his sister, but Thomas had told her he was an only child. Maybe a cousin. But why would he hide that photo, never mention them? And that look on his face, the way he gazed at that baby. That wasn't how you looked at a nephew or cousin's child. Her phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. Found the AirPods. They were in my car. Have a great day. Love you. Sarah's stomach lurched. The casual normalcy of the message felt obscene next to the photograph lying on their bedroom floor. She couldn't respond. Her fingers felt numb, disconnected from her body. She picked up the photo again, studying every detail. The beach setting looked tropical, definitely not Canada. The woman's clothing, the palm trees, the quality of light. Somewhere warm, somewhere south. Mexico, maybe? The Caribbean? And the handwriting on the back, Nuestra familia, siempre juntos. Spanish, our family, always together. Thomas had never mentioned speaking Spanish, never mentioned traveling to Spanish-speaking countries. In 3 years together, he'd spoken about his past only in the vaguest terms. My childhood was complicated, he'd say. I prefer to focus on our future, not my past. She'd thought it was romantic. Now she realized it was evasion. Sarah's hands were still shaking as she sat down on their bed, the photo clutched in her fingers. She needed to think clearly, rationally. There had to be more information. Thomas kept everything organized. Documents, files, records. If there were secrets, there would be evidence. She started with the obvious place, Thomas's home office. The room was immaculate, as always. A large desk with a leather chair, filing cabinets, bookshelves lined with finance textbooks and business books. His laptop wasn't there. He'd taken it to work, but the desktop computer sat dark and waiting. Sarah had never used Thomas's computer before. She didn't know his password. But she tried anyway, her fingers typing the obvious options, their wedding date, her birthday, his birthday. Nothing worked. Then, on impulse, she tried Fisher 2015, his last name, and the year he'd told her he graduated college. The computer unlocked. Sarah's heart hammered as she opened the browser history. But it was clean, completely empty. Thomas had either never used this browser or had deleted everything. She checked his email, but his accounts required additional passwords she didn't have. Then she saw it, a folder on the desktop labeled Personal Documents. Inside were the usual things: tax returns, insurance papers, the deed to a car he'd sold before they met. But buried in a subfolder called Archive was a PDF document titled Decree Final 2019.pdf. Sarah's hand trembled as she clicked it open. The document loaded slowly, and when it did, the words seemed to swim before her eyes. Superior Court of California, County of San Diego, in the marriage of Thomas Andrew Fisher and Elena Martinez Fisher, judgment of dissolution of marriage, dissolution, divorce. Thomas had been married before. Sarah's breath came in short, shallow gasps as she scanned the document. Date of marriage, June 2016. Date of separation, March 2019. One minor child, Lucas Thomas Fisher, born February 2018. Lucas. The baby in the photograph, Thomas's son. The room tilted. Sarah gripped the desk to steady herself. Thomas had a child, a son who would be, she did the math, 5 years old now, and an ex-wife named Elena Martinez. But Thomas had told her he'd never been married. "You're my first everything," he'd said when he proposed. "My first love, my first wife, my only wife." It was all a lie. Sarah's shock was slowly crystallizing into something else, a cold, determined need to know the truth. She grabbed her phone and opened Instagram, typing Elena Martinez Fisher into the search bar with trembling fingers. The first account that appeared had a private profile, but the profile picture showed the same woman from the photograph, older now, but unmistakably her. The bio read, "Single mom, San Diego, marketing consultant, living my best life, single mom." So Thomas wasn't in their lives. He'd abandoned them, run away from his own family. Sarah sent a follow request, knowing it was desperate, knowing Elena would probably think she was crazy. But she had to know more. She continued searching, trying different variations of the name. Then she found it. A public Facebook account for Elena Martinez, San Diego Marketing. The profile was a window into another life. Photos of Elena with a beautiful little boy, Lucas. It had to be Lucas. He had Thomas's eyes, his smile. Pictures of birthday parties, beach trips, school events, a complete family life that Thomas had never mentioned, had actively hidden. Sarah scrolled back through the timeline, her heart breaking with each image. Lucas's first day of kindergarten. Lucas at a soccer game. Lucas blowing out candles on a dinosaur cake. And in none of these photos, not a single one going back 2 years, was Thomas present. But then Sarah found something that made her blood run cold. A post from Elena dated March 2023, 6 months ago, to everyone asking, "Yes, Lucas's father has resurfaced after 3 years of zero contact. Yes, he's asking for visitation rights. No, I don't know what to think. Please respect our privacy during this time." The comments section was filled with support from friends, but one comment stood out. "Elena, be careful. Remember what the lawyers said about his pattern. Protect yourself and Lucas." What pattern? What had Thomas done? Sarah was still staring at the post when her phone rang. Thomas's name flashed on the screen. She couldn't answer. Not yet. Not until she knew more. She let it go to voicemail, listened as Thomas's familiar voice filled her ear. "Hey, babe, just checking in. That client meeting went great. Should be home around 6. Want me to pick up Thai food? Love you." The casual domesticity of it made her want to scream. Sarah looked at the divorce papers still open on the computer screen, at the Facebook photos of the son Thomas had never mentioned, at the photograph in her hand. She had married a stranger, a man who had erased his entire past, built a new life on lies. And now she needed to find out why. Sarah spent the next 3 hours in a frenzied investigation, her laptop open, phone beside her, documents scattered across Thomas's desk. Every discovery was another crack in the foundation of her marriage. She found more divorce papers in the computer files, but not just one divorce, two. The first wife was named Jennifer Paulson. They'd married in 2014 in Seattle, divorced in 2016. No children mentioned. Sarah searched for Jennifer on social media and found her in Portland, Oregon. Her Facebook profile showed a happy woman with a new partner, but one post from 2017 made Sarah's skin crawl. PSA to all single women out there: if someone seems too perfect, trust your gut. If they isolate you from friends and family, run. If they control all the finances, get out. I learned the hard way. Don't be me. Thomas had done this before. The same pattern Sarah was living now. The initial perfection, the gradual isolation, the financial control. Sarah grabbed her phone and called Jennifer. She didn't know what she was going to say, but she had to try. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Sarah left a message, her voice shaking. "Hi, Jennifer. You don't know me, but my name is Sarah Weber or Fisher. I think I'm Thomas's third wife. I just found out about you and Elena. Please, I need to talk to you. I need to understand what happened." She hung up, feeling exposed and desperate, but 15 minutes later her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Sarah?" A woman's voice, cautious but urgent. "Yes, is this Jennifer?" "No, it's Eleanor." "Jennifer gave me your number. She's on the line too. We need to talk. Now." Sarah's heart hammered as Elena added Jennifer to a 3-way call. "How did you find us?" Elena asked. "I found a photo in his wallet, of you and Lucas. Then divorce papers on his computer," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "He told me he'd never been married, that I was his first everything." A bitter laugh from Jennifer. "He told me the same thing, said he'd never find love until he met me." "Same," Elena added. "The perfect man routine, until it wasn't perfect anymore." "What happened?" Sarah asked. Elena spoke first. "He became controlling. Slowly, so I didn't notice at first. Wanted to know where I was every minute. Got angry if I spent time with friends. Then I got pregnant with Lucas and everything escalated. He became paranoid, accusatory. Started saying the baby wasn't his, even though we both knew it was." Jennifer interrupted. "He did the same to me. No kid involved, but same pattern. Charming at first, then possessive, then psychologically abusive. He convinced me to quit my job, isolate from my family. When I finally tried to leave, he threatened to destroy my career, said no one would believe me." "Did he ever—" Sarah couldn't finish the question. "Get physical?" "Not quite," Elena said. "He was too smart for that. Everything was psychological, but I was terrified of him by the end. The lawyers said he showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder, pathological lying." Sarah felt the room spinning. "He's asking for visitation with Lucas? Showed up 6 months ago, claiming he'd changed, been in therapy, wanted to be a father. The court is considering it. That's why I've been documenting everything." "Sarah," Jennifer's voice was gentle but firm, "you need to get out. Document everything, secure your finances, and leave. Don't confront him. Men like Thomas are most dangerous when they feel exposed." But it was too late. Sarah heard the sound she'd been dreading, the apartment door opening. Thomas's voice calling out, "Babe, I'm home early. Surprise!" "I have to go," Sarah whispered into the phone, her voice barely audible. "Sarah, don't—" Elena started, but Sarah had already ended the call. She quickly closed all the windows on Thomas's computer, shoved the photograph into her pocket, and stepped out of the office just as Thomas appeared in the hallway. "Hey, what were you doing in there?" His smile was warm, but his eyes scanned past her, taking inventory of his space. Your wallet, you forgot it." Sarah's voice sounded foreign to her own ears. "I was going to bring it to you." Thomas's expression shifted just for a microsecond. a flash of something dark crossing his features before the charming mask returned. "My wallet? Oh, right. Thanks, babe." He walked past her into the office, and she watched as his eyes went immediately to the computer screen, then to the desk where she'd left the divorce papers visible. The temperature in the room dropped. When Thomas turned back to face her, the man she'd married was gone. In his place stood someone she'd never seen before, cold, calculating, dangerous. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need to talk about what you've been doing." Sarah's instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet remained frozen. Thomas stood between her and the only exit from the office, his posture deceptively relaxed, but his eyes sharp and assessing. "I can explain the papers," he said, his voice eerily calm. "But first I need to know exactly what you found. What did you look at?" "Everything," Sarah said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "The divorce papers. Both of them. Elena, Lucas, your son that you abandoned." Thomas's jaw tightened. "Abandoned? Is that what she told you? Did you talk to her?" "You lied to me, Thomas, about everything. You have a child. That's not my child." The words exploded from him, his composure shattering. Then, just as quickly, he collected himself, running a hand through his hair. "Sarah, baby, you don't understand. Elena trapped me. She got pregnant to keep me in that marriage. I had to leave for my own sanity." Sarah recognized the tactic now. She'd read about it in the comments on Elena's Facebook, in support group posts she'd found. Gaslighting, making the victim doubt their own perception of reality. "And Jennifer?" Sarah challenged. "Did she trap you too? What about me, Thomas? Was I part of some pattern?" His expression hardened. "You've been talking to them, those bitter, vindictive women who couldn't accept that I moved on to something better." He took a step toward her. "Sarah, everything I did was to protect us, to give us a fresh start without the baggage of my past mistakes." "Mistakes?" Sarah's voice rose. "You have a 5-year-old son who doesn't know his father." "Because Elena poisoned him against me," Thomas shouted, then lowered his voice, shifting tactics again. "Baby, please, you're my real family. You're the one I chose. Those other marriages, they weren't real. This is real. What we have is real." Sarah watched him perform, recognizing now what she'd been too in love to see before. Every word calculated, every emotion manufactured. He was trying to find the right combination that would make her doubt what she knew to be true. "I spoke to them," Sarah said quietly. "To Elena and Jennifer. They warned me about exactly this, about how you'd try to manipulate me." Something shifted in Thomas's eyes. The charm vanished completely, replaced by cold calculation. "You called them? You involved them in our marriage?" His voice was soft now, dangerous. "Sarah, that was a very stupid thing to do." He moved toward the desk, and Sarah saw what he was reaching for, his phone. "Who else did you tell? Your parents? That nosy friend Jennifer Miller?" "Stay away from my phone," Sarah said, backing toward the door. But Thomas was faster. He grabbed her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. "We need to fix this, together. You made a mistake, got confused, but we can fix it. We just need to call Elena and Jennifer back. Tell them you were confused, that everything's fine. Let go of me." Sarah's heart pounded, but she kept her voice level. "Not until you calm down and listen." Sarah yanked her arm free and ran. She made it to the bedroom, grabbed her phone and purse, and headed for the front door. But Thomas was right behind her, his hand slamming against the doorframe, blocking her exit. "You're not leaving," he said, and for the first time, Sarah heard the barely contained rage beneath his words. "Not until we figure this out. You're my wife, Sarah. You belong to me." Sarah pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling the police." "And tell them what? That your husband tried to talk to you? That you went through my private files without permission?" Thomas laughed bitterly. "Go ahead, call them. Let's see who they believe, the hysterical wife or the respected financial consultant with no record." But Sarah was already dialing, not 911. She called the one person she knew would answer immediately. "Jennifer," she said when her best friend picked up, "I need you to come get me, right now, and I need you to stay on the phone the entire time." Thomas's expression shifted from anger to calculation. He stepped back from the door, hands raised. "Fine. Leave. Run to your friend. But Sarah," his voice dropped to a whisper, "you have no job, no income, no savings in your own name. Everything we have is mine. Think very carefully about what you're throwing away." Jennifer arrived within 20 minutes, but they felt like hours. Sarah stood in the building's lobby, her phone clutched in her hand, while Thomas remained upstairs. He'd let her leave, but not before his final words. "You'll come back. They always do." "Get in the car, now," Jennifer said, pulling up to the curb. Sarah barely had the door closed before Jennifer was driving, constantly checking the rearview mirror. "Did he follow you?" Sarah asked. "No, but I'm not taking chances. I'm taking you to my place and we're calling a lawyer tonight." Over the next week, Sarah's carefully constructed life disintegrated, but in its place, something unexpected emerged. Clarity. And she wasn't alone. Elena flew up from San Diego with Lucas, meeting Sarah at Jennifer Miller's apartment. The three women, Thomas's victims, sat together sharing their stories, and a disturbing pattern emerged. "He found me at a vulnerable moment," Jennifer Paulson said via video call from Portland. "I just lost my mother. I was grieving, isolated. He was perfect. Too perfect." "I'd just moved to San Diego for work," Elena added. "Didn't know anyone. No family nearby. He targeted that isolation." Sarah realized she'd quit her job, drifted from friends, let Thomas become her entire world. It wasn't coincidence, it was calculated. But the most chilling discovery came when Elena's lawyer, Maria Gonzalez, joined their conversation. "Ladies, I need to show you something. When Thomas petitioned for visitation rights with Lucas, we did a background check. A real one, not the surface stuff." Maria pulled up documents on her laptop. Thomas Fisher isn't his real name. He was born Thomas Andrew Bergman. He legally changed it in 2013. "Why would he—" Sarah started. "Because there's a fourth woman, Amanda Bergman, married to Thomas in 2011 in Chicago. That marriage ended with a restraining order after he drained her bank accounts and disappeared. She tried to press charges for fraud, but he'd covered his tracks too well." Sarah felt sick. "How many of us are there?" "That we know of. 4 marriages in 12 years. But there might be more we haven't found." The revelation galvanized them into action. Maria helped Sarah file for an emergency annulment based on fraud. They discovered Thomas had forged documents showing his divorce from Elena was finalized before he married Sarah. It hadn't been. Legally, Sarah's marriage was invalid. He was still married to Elena. "He's a bigamist," Maria explained. "That's a federal crime in Canada." The Vancouver Police Department's fraud division became involved. Detective Ryan Chen was assigned to the case, and what he uncovered was staggering. Thomas had maintained separate identities, bank accounts, even different social media profiles for each life he built. The financial records showed a pattern. He'd marry women with savings or inheritances, gradually gain access to their finances, then disappear before they realized what happened. But with Elena, the pregnancy had complicated his exit. With Sarah, he'd been more patient, waiting for her freelance business to grow. "He's a sophisticated con artist," Detective Chen explained. "The romance, the perfect husband act, it's all grooming, making you dependent, isolated, then exploiting that vulnerability." The investigation revealed Thomas had withdrawn $47,000 from accounts in Sarah's name, money from her parents' gift for their wedding, her grandmother's inheritance. Gone. But Thomas had made mistakes. The forged divorce documents, the bigamy, the pattern across state and international lines made it a federal case. In November 2023, U.S. Marshals and Canadian authorities arrested Thomas Andrew Fisher Bergman at his office. The trial took 8 months. Sarah, Eleanor, Jennifer, and Amanda all testified. The prosecution presented evidence of systematic fraud, identity theft, bigamy, and emotional manipulation spanning over a decade. In July 2024, Thomas Fisher was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison for fraud and bigamy, with additional civil judgments ordering him to repay his victims. It wasn't enough. It never felt like enough, but it was something. More importantly, it was validation. 1 year later, September 2024, Sarah stood in her new apartment in Calgary, closer to her parents, surrounded by real friends. Her graphic design business was thriving. Turned out she was talented when she wasn't being told she needed someone to take care of her. Elena had full custody of Lucas, with Thomas's parental rights terminated. The little boy was in therapy, healing from years of his father's absence and manipulation. Jennifer Paulson and Amanda had both rebuilt their lives, found real partners, learned to trust again. The 4 women maintained a group chat, supporting each other through the ongoing recovery process. They'd even started a blog together. The Red Flags We Missed, helping others recognize the warning signs of predatory relationships. Sarah's entry from that morning read, "If someone seems too perfect, pay attention. If they isolate you from friends and family, that's not love. If they control finances, make you dependent, erase their own past, run. Trust your instincts. Ask questions. Don't ignore red flags because you're in love. Real love doesn't require you to give up yourself." The comment section was filled with stories from other women who'd recognized themselves in Sarah's experience, who'd left dangerous relationships, who'd found the courage to trust again. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from her new therapist. "Proud of you. See you Wednesday." She looked at the photo on her desk, not of Thomas, but of herself with Elena, Jennifer, Amanda, and little Lucas at a park in San Diego. Survivors, warriors, sisters forged in trauma and healing. The fairy tale marriage had been a lie. But what came after? The strength, the truth, the real connections that was authentic. And that, Sarah had learned, was worth more than any illusion of perfection.